Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers.
It
It's Erika,
is,
Lance, and Mark Muncy here with the Eerie
yes,
Travels.
and it is Nocturnal New Year. See, I did it.
Nocturnal New Year.
I
That was
did it.
so
I did a
off-key.
musical.
You did, and I know it's because you've been listening to the episodes and hearing me harp on it, so I
Yep,
appreciate it.
yep. I took some time over the holidays to catch up on our own episodes. I realized I had fallen behind.
Travelers, if you're wondering, we listen to ourselves again because sometimes we don't actually know what comes out of our mouths.
Yep,
So, and
yep.
I'm proud and not proud of that fact at times, but sometimes I listen to the stories and I get freaked out all over again.
Some of those listener tales, man. I re-listened to them because I'm typing them up for future projects, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't notice that detail the first time we read it.
In the moment. Okay. We
In the moment.
have a really, really cool episode today that I am super excited about. So,
Oh,
um,
okay. Well, I'll let
yes.
you take it away then.
Okay. Well, and you know a little bit about this. So I had the opportunity, and I mentioned it on the show briefly and said, I'm going to share more, but I waited till this moment to do that because I got a witch tattoo, which I'm super
Oh,
excited about. And it was from the most amazing person. And I was like, I have to have her on this podcast. So she is here with us today. And so the Sigil Witch herself, Janine Houseman, welcome, welcome.
Hello, travelers.
Ooh, I
hey,
like that.
love it.
I like that.
Hi.
So, I had the opportunity to get a beautiful tattoo, and I gave a picture already to our producer who's going to share that with the audience at large when she posts this episode. But it was probably one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. And there were so many like moments throughout it. But I want to start with you doing a little introduction of yourself, like who you are, and then we can dive into witch tattoos because it's an amazing thing. So tell us your origin story, please.
All right. Well, I am Janine Houseman, as you know me. I'm also the Sigil Witch. I'm based out of Exton, Pennsylvania. I've been tattooing for a really long time. Like, I think it's almost like 15 or 16 years. But I have been offering ritualized tattooing or skincantations since 2015, and it's my favorite thing ever. I've also illustrated an oracle deck for a really famous writer named Danielle Dolsky. That's really cool if you guys want to check out some of my works. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And we're going to share the links to you and your shop. So I was introduced to you by Brandy. That's all I'm ever going to say on this show is Brandy, Brandy, Brandy. I feel like that's
Yeah.
the mantra in Enchanted Flower Bake Shop. But she had told me about these tattoos and she had gotten some ones from other people in your shop. And then she said, you can have a witch tattoo. And I was like, what? What? Tell me all about this thing, right? And from my experience, I got the opportunity to send in a request to do this. There's different communication, but I feel like you would better tell how this works to begin with than me explaining my very weird side of this. So
From my perspective, yes. So there's an application to do it just so I can make sure that we're on the same energetic thing. Because, like, sometimes people think that I'm just a psychic and I'm gonna like pull something from their brain that like they don't know that they want or something. That's not what is happening when we do this process. So
no brain pulling, no brain extraction.
I wish I could read minds. However, I cannot. It is not a superpower of mine. But yeah, so the whole idea of the sigil is it's sort of derived from like my own spirituality and my own witchy practice, where I was kind of trying to figure out like what kind of sacred tattooing would like my primal ancestors offer, like what would that look like, so I found what my heritage mostly was, and that is Scottish and also Italian. But I started like really diving into like the primal ancestors of the Scots. And that is the Pictish. And the reason they're called the Pictish is because they're covered in pictures. That's what the Romans named them. And so they're these heavily tattooed warriors, and it's a matriarchal society. So I imagine somewhere in history that there was a dope lady who was a witch that like cultivated this energy and their desires and like what they needed from their tattoo. And then they did it for them in sort of a similar fashion. So yeah, so that's like what this experience is based around. But what we end up doing is I pull a whole shit ton of cards, tarot cards, to kind of figure out, you know, what's going on in your life right now. I pull these cards to kind of figure out like what are like the shadow aspects that you're dealing with right now. So the parts of yourself that you're repressing and that you're seeing through other people through like negative characteristics or positive characteristics and qualities, right? And then with talking with you in that hour amount of time, I really get to get beneath those layers with you. I feel like after the sessions too, like I have a really deep understanding of like who my client truly is. And that's a really like beautiful thing. When I started tattooing, that was kind of the opposite of what we were taught by our mentors. Like, it's like asking, when you ask like why somebody's getting a tattoo, it's sort of like a bartender asking a patron why they're drinking, right? So like, I'm kind of pushing the boundaries in that way too. Like, I want to know all the things. I want to know what your soul needs.
I have to say, what my soul needs. I love that. I have to say, so going through that process and talking to you and doing that first communication, right? Where you're talking to me about what you pulled together and stuff. When you say speaking to the soul, like that happened 1,000%. You said stuff that I was like, does she know that? Like, and
Yes.
but what was so fascinating to me, because we've talked to a lot of people in our past and some on the show where, you know, you mentioned the psychic thing, and psychics can be great, and there are some that are incredibly talented out there, but there are also some fraudsters. Like there's, you know, a thing in your life that you're confused about. Well, like
100.
everybody has that. Duh, that's like a gimme. But when we met and you went over the stuff that you pulled in the ancestor stuff, like it reverberated through me. Like I was sitting there and I took notes because I was like, it's just hitting me and I better write every single thing that's coming out of this woman's mouth down. Otherwise, because
I love that.
I did, I had to, and I still have it actually, because I had to reread it several times because it actually did hit things. You said shadow, and it did hit things that I was not, for lack of a better way, confronting. There's stuff that I wasn't looking at, and there was stuff I wasn't willing to confront and tackle and stuff. And then you said it, and I was like almost had tears in my eye because that's how impactful that part of our session was.
That makes me happy. Yeah. And a part of why I do it over the phone is I can't see you. It's an energetic barrier for me too. So like I'm less fearful of being like, this is what's coming up. I got to be completely authentic with you, you know, like, because, you know, sometimes seeing people's faces, you're like, oh, I should like rein it back a little bit. But like, I want to be totally authentic with you.
And I feel like you were, and that was incredibly interesting. So then we go through this process of talking to me and explaining what you got from your side of it, right? And then the next step is setting an appointment, correct?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what the next step.
I think the next step was setting an appointment. So I did. I set an appointment to come see you. And then how do you kind of do that? Because I think you pretty much, that's your day, right? The tattoo. So
yeah. So the day is dedicated to you. It's like the ritual of you, right? So like, again, taking it back to that primal ancestor, that crazy witch in the cave that you go to, like there's nobody else there. There's nobody else that's being focused on. It's literally about what you and what you need. So when I start my day, it's like I clear the space. I like make the tattoo room into like a sacred space. And then I go over our notes too. I look at like what was coming up, like what the patterns were. And then I start a ritual, like calling into like the ancestors to tell me what it is that you need for each direction. And then that's how the sigils are made.
Coming into your shop, let's talk. We're going to sidebar. Mark, you've got to hear about this shop. So little history, because you go into this shop and one of the things, there's a couple ghosts there, so we're going to talk about that. But one of the things I noticed was I said this to you, going into the shop, because I'd had the opportunity to be in the shop before because I got my nose piercing, which everybody sees in my pictures, from your shop, from your piercer there, because my goddaughter wanted to get her nose pierced. So I was like, cool, I'll do that with you for your birthday. Let's go. Because I'm pretty much down for anything that involves that kind of stuff. But what I noticed is it's calm. It's almost like no matter what's going on outside, you walk in and the space is just calm. And I'm not saying quiet. I'm saying you don't have any distractions or interference. You just feel comfortable in the space. But the space has its own unique history. And there's a couple of residents that maybe don't have bodies. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so the space originally, it's like when you come up to it, it's like, how is this here in this area? It's like in the suburbs, you know? And then it almost feels like you kind of like step through a portal into like a different like dimension, you know, like the area back here is like when you're walking up to the building, it's like, you know, there was a former church or chapel that was there. There's a bell tower, and then there's my building. And then there's a bunch of other like little like houses that are dotted all over the property, and it's all like hugged by trees, you know? So it's very like, I don't know, like a fairy journey. It's very pretty. But what it was used for back in the day, like back in the 40s, was there was this guy named Charles Penrose, and he created this building to bring like innovative thinkers and engineers and like people who wanted to build businesses in the community to help it, right? So there was like there's this like huge building that was like a press, like a printing press. So they would print like all of their information there. They would get together and have like these dinners and talk about these ideas. And then my building was like the Google, right? So like this was a 3,000 volume library where those guys would come and they would research like their ideas. A little Snapple fact too that I learned was that it was also a Masonic lodge, like some part. I can't figure out what part it was. Yeah. And so they definitely did ritual here. That's the point. But yeah, so it was used to create and to help the community. And I like to think that Creatrix's legacy is also like similar to that. So they're not usually like too irritated. Actually, I've never felt like they've like any of the ghosts here have been irritated with us being here. But anyway,
I don't think so. But I noticed because we were sitting getting ready to do the tattoo, and I was like, "So are there any ghosts here?" And you're like, "Yeah, is it a male or a female?" And it was a male, and he was, you know, standing up on the balcony, kind of just watching us. Not bad, not, you know, scary or anything like that. So let's talk about your ghost residents for a moment.
we have a few, but the most prominent is Charlie. He's the guy who was the founder of this place, and I believe it's his wife, Virginia, who's also here. So they actually had crypts like built on the property. So you pass them before you pass the chapel. And Charlie was actually buried here, and his wife had his body exhumed and moved to Philly. And I feel like I feel an energy around that. Like, I feel like it was like her last, like, and I hate to talk, but I'm only assuming, like, sort of feels like a little passive aggressive to me. You know what I mean? Like, when you look at his crypt, it's like the architect, the churchman, like, you know, it's all stuff. And then hers is like the wife, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else on there. So I was like, she got you. You know what I mean?
So it was Charlie that was a part of our thing. And so when I got there, you showed me. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I didn't pick the tattoo. So travelers listening, I didn't go, hey, what I'd like is a butterfly mosaic. Like that didn't, not those words would ever come out of my mouth, but it's so true.
Better a few drinks, maybe.
That is very accurate. That is accurate. And that is why I'm very fortunate that tattoo artists will not tattoo drunk people generally. Oh, thank you, Mark, for pointing out my inadequacy.
No worries. No worries.
Yes, keep me honest. So let's talk a little bit about the creation of the image.
Yeah, so sigils are typically there's two different ways to make them. So I have like a little witch school I'm teaching about sigils last week, actually. So there's a way that you could just make them where it is pretty straightforward. You take a spell or a sentence or a word, and then you remove any vowels or repeating letters, right? So then you're left with like a few letters, and you create a symbol from that, right? So why I'm bringing that up is there's a whole spell that I write for you, and I'm using the letters from that spell in my sigil. But then there's also things like numerology and symbolism, things like this that you could also throw into the sigil as well. So I also do that. And I'm channeling it most of the time that I'm doing this. So like sometimes when I'm actually tattooing, people are like, oh, I didn't see that when I was creating it. And there's like this beautiful thing. Like I'll notice that there's like 8s on all 4 corners, like 8 dots or something. I don't know, as an example. And like that means like standing in your power, and it's like in a place of balance, right? So intuitively, based off of the spell, I create the sigil that way, if that makes sense.
I have a question about the script. Are you using like Ogham, or are you using Pictish, or?
No, I'm not. I mean, sometimes with the swirls, like there are sometimes like swirls and stuff like that in there. But I'm not using Ogham. I'm not using the swirls. I'm kind of just using like, I don't know how to explain it. If you looked at my sigils, you would notice a very distinct pattern in them. They're almost like sacred geometry. They're almost like diamonds. They're always really balanced. There's always a like compass in the center. So I'm more so using the letters to create a very like balanced design, and then numerology and things like that.
Okay, so the letters are Greek, a mix, or English, or I was just
They're English letters, yeah.
okay, just
Yeah.
making sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
that way you understand what you've got on you. That makes much more sense.
Yeah.
Helps the intent. I know a lot of people get these
Mhm.
wonderful, tattoos that are in Arabic, or and so, or even Gaelic, and they don't understand one word that they've got on them.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, you understand the intent behind it, though. Okay, that's good enough.
Right.
But it would help.
Yeah, like for example, with kanjis, I remember like back in the day, like for example, like those symbols have like duplicit meanings. So like honey was my favorite example to use, meant spit too.
Yes.
So like people are walking around with a kanji that says spit on them, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Was it
that's funny.
bravery and soup? That was the big one on Big Bang
Mhm.
Theory. It was the same thing. Yeah. So, and that's why I always love that when people do that. But that's great, especially since I was about to say, because the Celtic stuff, we don't know what their language
Right.
was. We have general idea because it was from the Gaelic and stuff like that. Gaelic evolved from that, but we don't know what that original stuff is. It's still very
Right.
vague and all that, but we love it. So now you said you teach some young witches
I
too.
do.
We have a
Yeah.
lot of young witches in our audience, so because we get
Yeah. Yeah.
letters from them a lot. So tell us a little bit
Yeah. I
about
have
that.
So I have a lot of people that I work with, and they're like, I want to continue this work with you. Like I want to learn about the primal ancestors more. I want to learn about sigils. I don't know how to do magic. And I feel like a lot of what I'm trying to teach people is to trust yourself. Like you're so powerful. Like all of this is inside of you. It's a remembering. It's not like you're like just materializing something new. It's like you're literally remembering. So yeah, I have like a little online course that I teach. It's about to be coming to an end this January, but I'm gonna be opening it again probably in the springtime for a second group of people.
So I have to say, one of the things during our because we touching on witch and powers and stuff like that during our tattoo session, right? One of the things that I can say, and I can say this because I have an ass load of tattoos. So, I have total leg sleeve. I say that only because I've been there, done that. I have the t-shirt from tattooing. One of the things I completely admired and loved about the creation of the tattoo was your artwork in it was not like you weren't using a shader. Like that's a lot of times tattoo artists use a shader, and the dot work and everything like that you were just doing and creating these beautiful pieces to it, which was completely an artistic thing and
Thank
amazing.
you.
So I want to say that. And then secondarily, we're sitting and we're talking about stuff. I'm not going to go into it because it was my session and you guys don't get to hear that part. But I literally had a moment, and I think you know what I'm talking about, where it was like just electricity, like power just ran through everything between us. And I was like, like it was so immense. Like it was just a completely unique experience. And So doing that, and then at the end, we did kind of an amazing thing. So let's talk about that a little, because I'm not going to give away all of my stuff because it was very personal to me. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so basically to seal the magic and to activate the sigil, because the whole thing with the sigil is that it very much is like spicy psychology, right? So the lizard brain, the observer self, it understands like intense emotion and understands like something that's like memorable, something, it doesn't understand you being like, hey, you're a better person now today. Like, just be better. It's like you need to like show it a symbol, you need to show it like an energy or experience. So in closing, in like you setting that sigil on fire and like you making offerings to yourself and doing this little like closing ritual, I just feel like it's such a great way to like just bring that whole thing into its container and close,
you end up doing a spell, and you end up creating, what would you call the spell bottle? I feel like that's not
Spell jar.
the spell
Yeah.
jar, and then you seal it in wax, and you pick your wax. Like you go, I loved all of that whole entire thing, because
Yeah.
one, I got to cast the spell, so that seems dangerous for me. But anyway, continuing. I was like, let me find my grimoire. No,
I
so,
love it.
I'm close to that point, but I need to rein it in a little. Not really. But we cast the spell and then we seal it in the jar, and you pick your wax and your symbol, and it's like just the most amazing process to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like buzzing for days, just buzzing about this. And then on top of it, it didn't hurt. So I'm not saying getting tattooed doesn't hurt, but what I meant was there wasn't a lot of pain. There wasn't, I don't know how to explain it other than negative things that sometimes go with getting a tattoo, because there's pain and there's this, and you have a lot of attention on just that spot because of whatever. And I didn't have that. And again, as somebody who has leg sleeves and a lot of tattoos, it's not like I have a little butterfly and I was like, this didn't hurt, like my little butterfly didn't hurt. No, like this, I didn't feel that, which was very different at the end of this process.
Sounds like you were really ready for it.
Yeah, many levels of being ready for it. So
Yeah, yeah. It really does vary from person to person, because I mean, I guess it depends on like what you're like alchemizing or bring out of yourself, right? Like, because I've had people that can like barely sit through it too at the same time,
I was gonna say, I was about to ask if you've had the opposite effect, where some people
Yeah.
some people can't handle their energy
Yeah.
at all. So
100%. But I mean, I feel like I've always like checked back, like, how are you doing? And they're like, you have no idea, like all the things that are changing in my life. So like I said, it's that intense emotion though. So like, even though if it hurts or it sucks, like your body's like, dude, I went through this rite of passage. Like I'm going to start like with that motion. Right. So it's interesting.
it was, anyway, completely unbelievable experience. And the link is in the show notes. So anyone who would like to be a part of this and experience it. And I'm not going to say try it out or do something cool, because that's not the intention of this. So if you just want to get a tattoo because you're being cool, this is not the experience to do. But outside of these tattoos, you do other tattooing as well, correct?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I do a lot of like fine line, sacred geometry, dot work, black work stuff. I do a lot of stuff. I've been tattooing a long time.
I've seen your work outside of the work on me. I've seen your work, and like you've recently done some goddesses that I was like, I literally have been thinking since we met. I'm like, what goddess would I put on me? I'm swaying towards Medusa, which I don't think is a goddess, but I feel like she should have been a goddess because
She is.
she's got the yeah. So anyway, that's traveler.
Yeah.
Consider that might be coming up here shortly.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. So I wanted to just say, if people want to look up your artwork and potentially reach out to you outside of doing this kind of, sacred kind of tattooing, you do other tattooing, and you have amazing artists, because it's not just you. You have you want to talk a little bit about your business before we go to a break?
Yeah, I have two other tattooers, and I have a cosmetic tattooer also at the studio. And Everybody who works here is an amazing woman and just like the sweetest girls. Like I don't know. I feel like that's why you feel so comfortable and safe when you come into the studio. We all hold space and try to honor each of the clients, but yeah, everybody here does beautiful work. Like my one girl, Elise, she does like really like fine line, super delicate, like I do stippling, but she does it like so tiny and so detailed. Like she's like a little spider. And Alex, who works here too, she does a lot of floral things. She loves doing things with dot work as well, very delicate. And then Shay, who works with us, she does eyebrows and lip blushing. So yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Yes, and the shop is amazing. It's so beautiful, and you have I can't even, there's so many amazing things, including the dinosaurs that are behind you. Like it's just layers and layers of stuff. So if everyone is interested, definitely check this out. But we have to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back to the paranormal because layers. I love it. Okay, we'll be right back.
Eerie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
We are back, and Mark, you brought up, so you found my goddess for me.
Like I said, I went through a process while we were talking there. My brain started going, well, what goddess for Erika? And I was like, well, it's got to be someone who likes drinking and books. And so I was immediately going wizards and and wisdom, and I was going Artemis and all this. And then I was like, no, wait, we're talking Celtic. And so it's warped back, and I was like, Bridget, because we've got Imbolc coming up. So my mind was on Bridget's Day and all that. And then I was like, no. Maeve. She just came out of the blue, literally at me, and not the boys' Queen Maeve, but she is named after this character. And she was an Irish mythology, or I don't even like to say mythology, Irish belief. It is she who intoxicates. And I immediately thought I was like, oh, I think Janine and Erika could do some magic there.
Oh, yeah, no, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. I'm going to be talking after this. So yes. Now you brought up another point, which was the sleeve thing.
So I didn't mention this when we were talking about other things that I offer. And that is that I do sleeves that are like living altars that are dedicated to deities. So far I've done 3. Well, I started a leg one, but that's a whole different story. Okay. So one for Nyx, one for Persephone, and one for Aphrodite. And it's like you put like the crystals or the offerings that you would leave for her, or like, other like their lovers or like whatever. And it's so fun to connect together because like, I don't know, like sometimes when you see a sleeve, like it's almost like predictable, like what to see in a sleeve, right? Like how the composition is. But when you have all of these like organic things together, and like you truly know what they mean. It's so cool. It's so magical.
Yeah, now we're going to connect because you're going to do another one, which is going to be made for me.
Yes.
Right after I left there, I was like, I would love to do that, but I had to find one that connected. Mark, you were the piece that pulled this all together.
Hey,
Thank you.
I have epilepsy. Most tattooists don't want to deal with people with epilepsy, so that's always been a bane of my existence. Is like because I always want the Buckaroo Banzai logo on one shoulder because I'm a nerd, and then I was like, oh, and then that would be awesome to get an altar to somebody that I love over on the other.
Yeah.
But sadly, not pretty much not in the cards for me. But
does your doctor say no?
it's the doctor and most tattooists, will say because you're shaking, they can't, promise anything, and who knows what triggers it for me. I don't know if a tattoo would trigger it. So
okay.
Mark will have to come with me as I do this, and we'll do a party dot. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
I know, right? A party dot, dude.
A party dot. We'll do a little party dot, a little Erika party dot, and see how
you got it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Most tattooists say that they'd have to, I'd have to basically be under,
really
stuff like that, So
yeah, I'd have to do my due diligence and research about that. Yeah,
especially anything complicated.
Well, party dot isn't complicated, Mark. Just throwing that out there for us to try. Anyway, okay, so Erika's goals in life now. Write this down, Beau. I'm going to check into how to tattoo Mark after I get my goddess sleep.
I got some that down. Put on there, and I probably should put on there to protect me from some of the places I've been.
Oh, yeah. Mark, let's not even go down the route of things that you will not protect yourself from because, yeah. So first of all, travelers, your travel destination is going to be in Pennsylvania. So, and it's outside of Philly, just to give you an idea of the map locale. So let's talk a little bit about your own experiences, because when we talked before, you have some, and of course there's some that I'm sure you're willing to share because we love the paranormal on this show.
Yes. I've had quite a few here. I'm not very good at telling like long stories, but
That's okay.
When I first came to see the studio to see if I like wanted to like make it the home for Creatrix, I like immediately that day like had an experience. So the realtor was like coming to like let me into the building and stuff, and he had like there's these two big doors and he opened them all the way up so that like the light could come in, yada, yada. So I'm like inside the library and I see this like older gentleman who's like dressed like really, really nice, who's just like walking very intently down like our slate path. And I feel like he had like either a cane or an umbrella or something. I was like kind of seeing him out of my peripherals. And then like I literally went to like be like, oh, is that like the guy whose property this is? And then he was like gone. So like he was never in like human form, but I saw who I believe, I think it was Charlie. I think he was like showing up to show me like, also I come with this property, you know? But then, so after
that was nice of him to do. I just want to say, because I'm sure many people who've encountered things in their house would have preferred that whatever it was kind of showed up and went, by the way, if you buy this, do you see that room up there? I live there. Thanks.
Yeah, right? And at this point too, I'd completely overlooked like the crypts and all that stuff. I was just like so in awe of like the actual building. But the first couple of like, I feel like it was a while though. It's kind of hard to say like the exact amount of time, but at 6 o'clock on the dot at night, like every night, the doors would lock by themselves. Like they'd be like, it's time to go. Like work is over. Like it never felt like anything threatening, but that would happen. There's like a plaque over by our sink too of Charlie. And like sometimes the light will be on like when we come back in and stuff. It's just like little trickster stuff. It's nothing crazy, but that's like some of our little ghost stories here.
I love that because it's a really different space. And then there's a caretaker that likes to hang out outside the window, correct?
Yeah. His name is Martin. I don't really see him too much, but again, like when we first moved in, like I would see him like just walking back and forth across the main square out front, and then also in the back area of the studio, like every once in a while. I've only seen him like 3 or 4 times, I feel like.
Didn't you see him with someone? Like he passed by the window and somebody was like, "Ooh."
Yes. Yes. So I was doing a sigil for this woman. She had come down from New York to get tattooed by me. And she was clairaudio and I'm clairvoyant. So I don't always get the whole story. Like there was this meme one time that was really funny. It's like a floating statue and it's like how I perceive ghosts sometimes. And it's like baloney. Like it doesn't say anything that's like really important. It's just like saying weird random stuff. But she only hears. So the same time that I'm seeing this guy walk by, she's like, "Oh, that's Martin." And she starts telling me all the things about him. And I'm like, "Wait, you can see him too." And we became like really good friends and like we're texting all the time and everything. It was really cool to have somebody that was like on the same like frequency, I guess, as I was. It was
No.
cool.
There are so many mediums that work together that do that, and people go, "Well, why are you both working together?" It's like, no, you have to do that because they're picking up different spectrums, they're picking up
Right.
different things, and then they compare notes at the end, and suddenly it's like, oh, now we have the whole picture. And that's exactly what you guys were doing, and I love that you came together and then that happened.
It was
like,
so cool. Like it changed my
perfect.
life because like I said, it's like you said, it's like you pick up a piece of it. You're just like, okay, like that was weird. But like to have somebody like fill in the blanks with you, it was a really like connecting feeling too, I have to say.
When did you get into witchcraft though? What created that for you that you chose that journey for yourself?
Oh, girl, that's been my entire life. Like I had been dabbling in witchcraft. I remember like finding tarot cards that like my mom had, like when she decided to like reject her religion that she had been raised with. I remember she had got us tarot cards, and I remember I stole them and brought them to school with me. And I was like, I'm so cool. And then also like potion making and trying to move things like with my mind. Like it's always been there, you know. I would say I started to seriously learn about it when I was in my 20s.
And then just for people who are listening, because we've had people go, I want to get into it. How do you transition? I mean, we've given the advice to potentially reach out to groups and things like that to find somebody, but what would you recommend?
The how I got involved and found like some people that could really help guide me was I was never into yoga, but yogis have some pretty like witchy practices that and sometimes the like pagan like runs into that like mixture a lot of times, I feel like now. But they'll offer things like circles, sound bath healing, regressions, like things like that. And you can kind of start to like meet people through that and network that way. It's sort of like a chain reaction. And like when it's ready to show up in your life, it will. You know what I mean? People will help you. But yeah, that's kind of how I did it.
That's very, very cool. And then let's talk a little bit about creating tarot cards. And then I'm going to get back to weird stories that I know you have. So let's talk about tarot cards though. So what was that like creating tarot cards?
Oh my gosh, it was the hardest and most amazing thing I ever did in my life. So it was actually an Oracle deck though, so they're a little bit different.
Sorry, Oracle deck. Forgive me.
Oh no, it's fine.
Oh, what is the difference? Share that with our audience. What is the difference between an Oracle deck and a tarot deck?
Okay, so I can say this. With tarot, it's a little hard to explain sometimes, but with tarot, there are always the same suits. There's always the same numbers. There's a major arcana and there's a minor arcana. In Oracle, that's not there, if that makes sense. So the tarot is more definite, and then the Oracle is going to be like more fluid and more intuitive, I guess. And you can put a lot of like artistic, like, I don't know, like around like a book instead of like, you know, the major minor arcana.
Tarot generally follows the Rider-Waite because that was the first one that we found a full set of, which is what we base our modern playing cards on. And that's, so that's.
Yeah, you could do tarot with playing cards.
Exactly. A lot of people don't realize that. I know a lot of psychics that do that. They prefer that because it's so much easier than saying, oh, there's the Aerophant. Oh, it's Queen of Hearts. We're good. Yeah.
Right.
And that's, that sort of thing. But yeah, Oracle decks are so much more interpretive, and it sounds exactly like the way you work, which is perfect.
So let's talk not just where you are now, but what are some of the fun, weird experiences you've had throughout your life being so sensitive?
Well, it started like when I was like really little. It wasn't as fun or cool, or it wasn't like, there's not like really a lot of like awesome stories. It's actually like pretty shitty, but and I feel like I had, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be like,
No, no, it's a way to bring it down there, Janine. No,
yeah, it was so shitty. But yeah, it was like ghosts are dicks to like kids, like sorry, not sorry. In the beginning of my 30s is when I started like re-embracing my abilities again. And I told my mom, it like I was confessing it to her because she's like acclaimed atheist, but she's like totally not. And so I'm telling her, I'm like, I see dead people, Mom. And she's like, Janine, you've always seen dead people. Like, remember Lucy? And then I was like, what, ma'am? Like, and then I remembered like this ghost that I had when I was growing up. It was like my imaginary friend, but she was like actually a ghost.
invisible friend. And we've talked about this on the podcast. I've said that because I don't think they're imaginary. I think children see them. They're very real, but we're told, oh, you're just imagining things and it can go away. So was Lucy nice to you?
I think she was. I don't really remember a whole lot, but I definitely think she was. Like, I definitely remember like when I was scared, I'd like call on her and she'd guide me and things like that. But I was really, really little. And then like, yeah, just like some other weird stuff. I feel like by the time I was like getting my Holy Communion or whatever, it all stopped. Like I was like, Jesus, take the wheel, and then when I was in my late 20s, like weird stuff started happening again.
So do you think that you pushed it away? Like you put up blockers to kind of
Absolutely.
get yourself out of that situation?
Yeah, it was not comfortable. I've specifically remembered like being overtaken by energy, you know what I mean? And that is like the most draining, awful feeling. Like I remember like screaming and like my mom having to turn up music really loud. It was like really, really uncomfortable. And then like I said, after that first communion, it stopped happening completely because I was like blocked, you know?
That seems to be a common theme where it just gets
Yeah.
blocked for so long and then it takes forever to break that wall down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like when I like kind of started like dabbling, like starting to do like the women's circles and feeling more comfortable and like trying different like meditations and stuff, it started to kind of like let me trust again, I guess, like lower that boundary down. And then a lot of weird stuff started happening again.
And then there's that whole, am I going crazy? Have I done something?
Yeah.
And it takes somebody else saying, oh, did you see that too? And then you're like,
Yes.
yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Just like, yeah, it is really, really wonderful to have people who support you and show you through that. I feel like some people, can't find that. So I'm grateful.
Well, and I think one of the things I wanted to touch on, because I've had a ton of experiences, I think all of us that are, on this podcast have as a child, and you have to be as a parent or somebody around that child. I don't want to say necessarily feeding into it, but acknowledging it and trying to give them ways to deal with it because it can be overwhelming, especially because I feel like children tend to be very open receptors to things because they have no boundaries, right? Like
Right.
we're new and we're shiny and we have no boundaries. And then I think for a lot of people, their empathic or their abilities get stunted because they do have to find a way to put up that wall to block just the tidal wave that's coming at them because they don't have a way to get it into a manageable stream of whatever
Right.
or experiences, And so when a child has that going, oh, it's just your imagination, I feel is like one of the worst things you can do versus, hey, let's figure out a way how to be strong. Because we talk about that even with adults who are having problems and stuff. How do you put your own barriers into place so that you're not blocking it off, but you're also not just being bombarded by whatever this is in your space?
It's so important. It's so important.
Mark, we only have a couple more minutes. What other questions do you have? I know I've monopolized this episode because I'm so excited
No,
to
it's
have her
fine.
on here.
I'm enjoying all of this. I literally am. So, Janine, we've got, like I said, we've got young witches out there and we've got old Appalachian witches who write us. We've got all kinds of granny magics and stuff like that are coming to light through some of our emails and things like that. You were talking about ancestral spirits and ancestral guides and stuff like that. how do you work that into all of this? Because that's one of the things these young people are saying. I think I'm hearing the voices of, someone guiding me, but I don't know how to respond.
It's I hope that I'm answering like what you're saying, right? But it's like infused in all of it. Like for me, like it's drenching everything. Like everything came from using my ancestors, like understanding I could utilize them to channel energies, utilizing them to protect me, to be an instant boundary against the shit that I'm not ready to receive, right? Like get out of my house from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm using the primal ancestors for that, right? I utilize that to understand like the lineage that I'm like receiving from all the grandmothers that came before me, right? So like it's really just drenched in everything. I hope I answered that right.
Oh, that's perfect. And in my last little bit, I know you were talking about Erika was going into detail at the beginning about how you guys went through the sessions and to come up with the sigil and how it had such meaning for her. And then she went back and reread it and found more meaning. I find that with a lot of psychics and a lot of mediums and stuff like that, and a lot of, witches, when they do these things, these intricate deep dives, sometimes you go back to it 10 years from now and it has a whole completely different meaning that you didn't even realize. Okay. So I was just about to say, do you have people coming back to you saying, hey, I did this a few years ago and now makes more sense?
One lady who was a very good friend of mine, and she had gotten a sigil from me like when I first started offering them to people in 2015. And she was like, admittedly, I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't really connect to this like a lot when I got it. And she started finding like her witchy path in the last year or two. And she said that she went back to that sigil and read it. And she said that it was like everything that she was like looking for like now. And this was like almost 10 years later. It was so cool. It was like future self made that for her. You know what I mean? Yep. It was so neat. I love that.
I wish future self would make more things for me, man.
I'm sure she is.
That's one of the bonuses for epilepsy. I turn on my computer one morning and I realized I've written 3 chapters yesterday that I don't remember writing. And I'm like, oh, thank you, past self.
Yes.
Well, as long as they're, intelligible, that's good. But
for the most part, I just forgot I wrote them.
So let's do a little bit of shameless self-promotion time. First of all, I do want to thank you for being on this podcast with us, because just thoroughly amazing experience that I would wish on.
We are going to be plotting our trip for Squonkapalooza later this year.
Let me know. I would love to like even just get together. Like seriously.
Oh yeah, well, we may make an appointment. So that'll be good.
Oh no, I'm going to be. The moment we're off of this, I'm emailing to go, Goddess, let's talk. Okay, so shameless self-promotion. How do people find your shop and stuff? What is the best way?
So I have a website if you like that kind of thing. It's sigilwitch.com, which is super easy to remember. And then I'm also on Instagram, which is a really great platform because I can put all of my links for all of your inquiries there. And then I have one appointment left. I'm doing a guest spot in Houston, Texas in February, which I'm super, super excited because it's at my all-time favorite hero god tattooer's tattoo studio, and he knows I exist and I'm really excited. So
fantastic.
I didn't just sound like a fangirl just then, but
no, it's all good. We all have ours.
Yeah. Totally. So I have one spot left. I was really excited. Like there was people in Texas that knew who I was and wanted to get tattooed by me. And I was like, what? But anyway, so that's a thing. But yeah, those 2 places, my website and Instagram, are the best ways to find all of the things that are Sigil Witch.
That is amazing. Again, thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing all this with our travelers. So I, as having experienced this, highly, highly recommend it. And I will be working on my goddess tattoo, and we will be working on Beau's witch tattoo, and then Mark's party dot, just to see in the direction.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Email.
I love that.
Maybe we'll get a squonk for Squonkapalooza, which is in August.
Okay, cool.
Johnstown. Johnstown.
Okay.
Okay.
Mark, of all the cryptid, okay, we're going to discuss this on another podcast, but of all the cryptids, you would pick the squonk to be the one.
I don't know. He's a sad boy.
He is a very sad boy, and you
Oh
know,
my God.
go like ferocious Mothman or Jersey Devil, and then
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
I'm gonna get a squonk across.
I'm gonna
back.
get the bench leg. So that's
Oh,
my.
I did a cryptid for my boyfriend. He has like a whole sleeve of cryptids. So
Oh, fantastic.
yeah. So his favorite is the Wendigo. Did I say that right?
Oh yes.
It
Yeah.
is so scary.
is a creepy
Apparently,
thing.
also little Snapple fact about me. I'm apparently really good at scary shit, tattooing it. I didn't know that until the love of my life showed me. So there's that.
Oh, well, you'll have to send us a picture of his sleeve because our travelers would love that.
Yeah, we did a
cryptids
big
in.
there's like a big werewolf from The Howling. It's like this really scary werewolf movie. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
We did a whole episode on werewolves. So werewolf movies.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we will so much more, and we'll absolutely have to have you back. So thanks again for being here, and I appreciate it. And Mark, take us away, my friend.
Well, gang, thank you again for tuning in. Keep up the wonderful things you do for us, and we will keep sending us those letters and listener tales. We love them, and it is now being near Imbolc, so be ready for St. Bridget's Day and make your altar and do what you need to do for that, and be ready for the beginning of spring. And as we get through the darkest part of winter, and with that, seal your sigils and set yourself up for the rest of the wonderful years ahead. And we will see you on the other side.